The next speaker is someone I have for me, it is an incredible honour to introduce Ireland's greatest theatre artist, Margaretta D'Arcy. I've made my living myself as a theatre artist, and I've been gobsmacked at the sheer brazen truth that Margaretta portrays constantly, and has. I don't know whether people here are aware of the colossal international reputation Margaretta D'Arcy has, and of course with her life and art partner John Arden, who sadly passed away 2 years ago. But the plays they wrote, such as the 24-hour non-stop Connolly show, such as Vandelaire's Folly, the Ballygon Bequest, there are so many of them that were hugely influential in radical theatre in Britain, in Ireland, in Europe, in the world. And it's fantastic that she's here. Of course, Margaretta D'Arcy she's been jailed herself. She was on a hunger strike in Armagh jail in the 70s. She was in Greenham Common in the 80s, central to the opposition to the use of Trident nuclear missiles by British forces. And of course, we all know she has devoted a lot of her time and energy in recent years to stopping the use of Shannon as a war port by the US military. She was in jail just recently for 3 months in Mountjoy jail, in Limerick prison and in women's prison in Mountjoy, for refusing to sign a bond to declare that she would not protest at Shannon Airport anymore. And during the course of the trial, she proceeded to make a citizen's arrest of the judge who was sentencing her. It's this inversion of the fallacy that we're fed as if it's fair democracy. This is where art and, as Benny, this is where myth and where the use of myth and story becomes so crucially important. Margaretta D'Arcy is the epitome of the art of challenge. Margaretta D'Arcy.
I'm just going to follow on what Benny was saying, is that you cannot change anything unless you understand first about what is happening. When he talks about capitalism, we can actually see the connection between Shannon and what is happening here at Rossport. The guards are the same. Many times I've been at Shannon and they have recognised me because I've been at Rossport, and at Rossport they recognise me because we've been at Shannon. Now also Maura and I, we were up in Achill, and who did we meet? We met a Garda there, and he had been at Shannon and he had been at Rossport. So what we are talking about is we are talking about inside Rossport you have a community under threat, a community who the state do not care whether you live or die. And at Shannon, we have exactly the same situation, which is that the government does not care whether the civilians at Shannon Airport live or die. And not only that, but they don't care whether anyone else lives or dies, because the policy of the US is break and kill. And this is what they are doing. Now, one thing I am going to bring out, that I actually believe in words. Very nice words from Donald about words. I'm a believer in words. I am a theatre person. And I'm just going to read out these words, and this is the oath of the Garda. I hereby solemnly and sincerely declare before God that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a member of the Garda Síochána with fairness, integrity, regard for human rights, diligence and impartiality, upholding the Constitution and the law and according equal respect to all people. I'm going to say is that the Garda Síochána are not doing that, is that they are traitors, and I don't care if there are good or bad ones. The oath is taken, you either believe the oath or you don't believe the oath. And what I suggest is that every time we go to court, is that we get them to read this out. Because what is happening is that words mean nothing anymore. Are we going to reclaim words? Are we going to say the truth? What is the truth? is the truth when they say fairness, integrity, regard for human rights. Regard for human rights, is that the truth? If it is not the truth, then let them admit it. Now, it's quite interesting on the question of truth. Conor Brady, last Sunday in the Sunday Times, and he said in relation to Shannon, I have little difficulty with the military of a friendly nation using Shannon to transit, but it would be more honourable if we admitted what we are doing. The most regrettable aspect of the state's approach is the caustic argument that the aircraft passing through Shannon are civilian planes, not military. We do not search them because the US tells us the personnel are unarmed. So we swallow a patently ludicrous proposition. We stay outside with our investors and Shannon collecting its landing fees. Now, the reason on Wednesday I'm going into jail again and I'm going to abstain from food because of the worsening situation, and abstaining from food is a small gesture in solidarity to the millions of citizens of other countries. Their homes, communities have been shattered by the complicity of our government by using Shannon. But not only that now. A radicalised ISIS fighter, battle-hardened in northern Iraq or Syria, will readily recognise our distinctiveness in allowing the US military to use Shannon. So we are now, as a people, under threat. And we've got to understand that. So not only about what is happening here in Rossport, but now every citizen who passes through Shannon in a US plane is under threat. This is our government. Can we actually, how far now can we continue with the lie? And I think this is what you're talking about, is that we do not accept lies. And how are we going to disprove lies? It's all very well having committees set up. But if we ourselves are not challenging the lie before we sit on the committee, what good are we? Because we then just allow someone else to lie. Now, something else, it is interesting, since Niall and I went on the runway, and thank goodness, and I have great belief in the actual support of the people. The people have been supporting the letters that I got when I was in jail, saying we did not realise that Shannon is used by the military. Now, Emily O'Reilly, she has said at the Barron School, said the state had turned a collective blind eye to the use of Shannon for rendition, despite the Irish Human Rights Commission, the European Parliament and the Council of Europe have all raised concerns about rendition. It is easy to turn a blind eye, but as Benny was saying, in the end it's up to individuals. We have got to have our eyes open, and how we tell the message is up to each individual person. At Rossport is that you led the way, the five of you, when you refused to accept the judgment of the court not to go on the land. In Shannon, Niall and I, is that we went on the runway because the runway is where the planes land and the planes leave. Mary Kelly, she went and she destroyed a plane and she was found not guilty, which is very strange. And the pit stop people, is they injured the plane. Now what we found is that injuring a plane does not seem to be as a threatening act to the US and to the Irish government as us landing on the runway. Now the other thing I think I should mention to you, and this is about how the Dáil responded to the Iraq War. Now once again, it endorses the decision of the government that Ireland will not participate in the conditions proposed military action against Iraq. That's in the Dáil. Is once again, do we believe these statements? Expresses its earnest hope that military action, should it occur, will be of short duration and that loss of life and destruction will be kept to a minimum. Declare its commitment to the sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity of Iraq. Call on all parties to any conflict to respect the provisions of international humanitarian law, in particular the Geneva Convention. welcomes the stated intention of the coalition to act swiftly to address the food and humanitarian needs of the Iraq people. Are these words that we are supposed to believe? And if they are words that they do not believe, then we have got to tear down the door. I think the situation is getting too serious for us to consider just having committees to investigate these things. Our country and our people are in danger because of the total indifference of Dáil Éireann and of the Garda Síochána who are not carrying out what they do. Now it's interesting that when I was in Mill Street, is what the Garda, somehow or other, if you're a political prisoner, if you're a political person of conscience, the guards always want to come and talk to you about their problems. Their problems is that they feel that once the level of sergeant is then all political. They actually don't feel that they have any right to do what they're doing. In Rossport, and I think Terence is that we were there when that Garda was saying is that the conditions inside the Garda Síochána is so horrendous because they stab each other in the back and you have careerism and that no one is free. So therefore inside the Garda Síochána they are suffering in many ways the same way as us. They feel that there is no control. Now another interesting thing that happened when I was in jail, and I think that this is really quite serious, and I don't know if anyone else has experienced it. Now remember, I am a theatre person, so therefore when I'm experiencing something, I am analysing what my experience is. And this is in relation to torture. Now you have mentioned torture. Now, I will not say I was tortured to the degree, but I think that torture is very much can be very small little cumulative things which actually can destroy you. Now I was there as a prisoner of conscience. I was a political prisoner, so in that sense that one is to a certain extent trained to be able to deal with these things. So now we know what happened in the north with the torture of the prisoners, and the fact is that the British government lied and that the Irish government accepted that lie, and that those methods of torture were actually banned. But when it came to the US, suddenly is that those those 5 methods of torture, which is the waterboarding, the standing in one position, the lack of integrity of the human being, suddenly is that this was allowed. So my experience in Limerick jail, and I'm just saying, it is very minor, but to somebody who would not have my experience or understanding, I was called in and I was told you're going to be out within an hour, which is what happened previously when we'd been arrested. And I thought, well, that's very nice. And then after 3 hours said, oh no, we're holding you because we think that there are some other charges that might be brought. Now this is an absolutely technical thing that they do to actually suddenly make you aware, because you don't know when you're going to be released, and you don't know what charges are going to be brought. So every 3 hours they kept on saying, oh no, we can't release you yet. There's going to be other charges. So by the time midnight came, no other charges came. And then I was held overnight. Why was I held for 22 hours on quite a minor charge? So that during that night is that one is wondering, when is one going to be discharged? Because they can hold you, they can actually hold you for days if they want to, because they can bring you in another charge, they can arrest you again. Now at midnight something very interesting thing happened. So that inside the cell, the bell did not work. Now we know that many young people have committed suicide inside the prison cells, because who do they call for? If there is not a bell, how do you get help? You can knock on the door, but there isn't anyone to answer the door. I wanted to go to the toilet now before midnight, and I think that this is also the way that torture works, because you have nice ones, and they're very nice and friendly, and my shoes were taken off for a time, and then another guard said, oh no, you shouldn't be in your bare feet, it's not healthy to be on concrete. My shoes were given back to me. On the business of the toilet, I was allowed to use the medical toilet up to midnight. Midnight, all that stopped. A whole different crew came in. Now, the business of the toilet, as anyone knows who's been in jail, is that they are squat toilets. So you have a squat toilet, and then in the morning, the door was opened and my breakfast was brought in. My breakfast was slid along to me on the floor as if I was a dog. And I said, I want to use the toilet. He said, you can use it there. And I said, yes. But if I use the toilet and my food here is beside the toilet, is there any way for me to wash my hands? Because they go on and on about hygiene and health and safety. Is it safe or healthy to have your food on the floor as well as to have a toilet which is urine all around? And that's the way that one gets disease. Now, interestingly enough, the breakfast was bacon and sausages. No drink. I then banged on the door and said, I want a drink. And he said, oh, well, that's your breakfast. You didn't ask for a drink. I said, I assumed that breakfast would be some kind of liquid refreshment. No. So I got no liquid refreshment. So from midnight until 10 o'clock the following morning, I had no refreshment whatsoever. When I was taken out, I was then put into a holding cell inside the Limerick court, which is once again completely irregular, because normally if you're a prisoner you're put into the body of the court. And instead I was put into a holding cell, and suddenly then the door opened, I was there in court. Now these are very, very minor things, but there was safety issue, so that there was no way, if I had a heart attack, to actually be able to get help, on the whole business of hygiene, on the degrading treatment, which I regard as degrading treatment, to actually have food just shoveled along the floor as if I'm a dog. And looking at the actual terms of torture. So it looks as if the Garda Síochána, as if that torture, which we know about what's happening in Guantanamo Bay, is this now seems to be part and practice of the Garda Síochána. So you break down your prisoner, you degrade your prisoner, you do not give water to your prisoner. And so that I would hope that anyone who has any experience going to the courts, going to the jails and the hold-ups, monitor every single thing that happens. The more that we can monitor, the more that we can understand what is happening. There is a war that's happening, and we have got to resist that war. We have got to save ourselves. It's a bit old-fashioned to say, in the name of 1916, we have got to do that. Because 1916, the land, the country, resources belong to us, all of us, men, women and children. It belongs to us, and we have to reclaim it. And we can reclaim it by reclaiming Shannon back from the military. Thank you.
2 weeks ago. This is just a little excerpt from the court case in Erris. I think Margaretta won't mind me reading it out. Airport police inspector on duty being cross-examined by Margaretta D'Arcy. Was he surprised to see them there? He answered yes, that any day he would be surprised to find people on the runway. Did he know that anti-war protesters had been on the runway previously? Yes, he did. Was he aware that there was a high-profile build-up to war in Syria at the time of this incursion, and that, for example, the British House of Commons had voted against participation in it? No, he wasn't. Had he ever inspected US military planes? No, he hadn't. Was he aware that 4 days after the incursion by D'Arcy and Farrell, after which he detained them under Section 33 of the Air Transport and Navigation Act 1988, that a US military plane, a US Air Force Hercules, had landed illegally? And had he arrested the pilot of that aircraft under Section 33 of the Air Transport and Navigation Act? No, and no, he hadn't. For me, that sums up. Benny talked about truth versus lies, light versus dark. There's the light showing the darkness that we're supposed to accept as norm. I want to read a statement from Betty Schultz. It's short, but it sums up in a way the kind of low-level intensity hell that has been inflicted on the community up here over a long period of time. This concerns the incident when the Shell tunnel boring machine, TBM, was blocking the road at Glenamoy Cross in the summer 2 years ago. We all were aware that the trucks with the TBM parts, by continuing their journey on the R312 towards Glenamoy, had travelled on a part of the road that was not included in the designated haulage road plan, and that they therefore must be in breach of the planning conditions. To highlight that, I contacted Mayo County Council, Shell and the local Garda station. I was told repeatedly that a permit dedicated to that specific lorry, allowing it to use that part of the road, was in place. The local superintendent told me and some neighbours that he had personally seen that document, and so we should not worry any longer. All was in order. Yes, we could inspect the permit, but not right now. There was nobody around to facilitate us. Yes, tomorrow was good. So a small group of us went to Belmullet, but sadly the superintendent was not available. Not today. We went home. I emailed the person in Mayo County Council who was responsible for this type of transport and was told there was a permit in place for this lorry to travel on this road, and I could find it attached to their response. What I found was a half-heartedly filled out form that related to a different truck and also clearly showed that the position of the lorry was about 2 kilometres away from the designated haulage road. I made him aware of this simple and easy to detect fact, and he insisted that this was the relevant paper. But what about the last 2 kilometres of the journey across a little bridge that had never been inspected for its fitness to carry such a load? What about the junction in Glenamoy that was now blocked with residents not being able to leave their villages? No, all is good. The permit allows the convoy to travel on that route. Where is this document? I've emailed it to you. No, you emailed a permit that does not relate to this part of the road. I emailed you the relevant documentation. I have not received it. Where is it? It is here at my office in Castlebar. Can I see it there? Yes, you can. Is it okay if I came at ... o'clock? Yes, that is okay. So I set off for Castlebar. I received a phone call from Mary Corduff, who told me that her sister had tried to see the document and on arrival at the office had been asked if she was Betty Schultz, and then been told no, she could only be facilitated by appointment. Well, I had one, but 5 miles outside Castlebar I received a phone call. No, don't come, the permit cannot be inspected today. But I rang you and we made this appointment. I'm here now. I'm very sorry, the permit has been removed from its file. Removed? Where is it now? It will be returned after the weekend. We can also email it to you. Yes, please do. So after a few days I received another email with another copy of the same relevant piece of paper, and when I was not happy with that, he recommended that I should turn to Shell. I wrote to Michael Crothers, who wrote back to me, apologised for all the inconvenience and was happy to help. He had enclosed in his letter yet another copy of a permit that clearly showed that the lorries had left the haulage road. That's from Betty Schultz.